today we're going to be talking about how to cut out door windows. The front windows on this are going to be easier than the back doors. So we're going to start with the front doors and we're going to show you a direct comparison to what you'll have to do differently on the back window. Starting off, the types of blades and the knives that I use, I have a couple different ones. If you're going to buy one, just get the red dot knife by NT Cutter with their stainless steel blades. You're going to want to use stainless steel when you're cutting on glass. That's going to be the safest option. So the reason why we have this black set here, so these are carbon steel blades, but these are also very, very thin, which we found out during my classes that they're really good for top edges. We're also using a plastic blade holder, so when we push this up against the top, you'll see it doesn't leave a scratch in the film. There's single cutting and double cutting. Double cutting is where we're going to be cutting out two patterns at the same time. We're going to do that in the next video, but for the first one, front door, back door, let's get some film, let's get set up. What do we need? I did not wash this car, which is most cars that honestly come to me. So I'm going to spray it off, and then I'm going to wipe the whole thing off with a rag. You can use glass cleaner, it doesn't really matter. I just like to do quick things that are on hand. You could also pressure washer it or anything like that. And then we're going to spray it with our soapy water mix here, and we're going to unroll a piece of film and we're going to put it on the car. Depending on your setup, you can pull a piece out of the box, cut it off. You don't have to handle the entire roll like this. There are a couple popular ways for cutting out a door window. There's also a Sharpie method. We'll make another video kind of going over the differences between hand cutting with a knife and then also using a glass board and a Sharpie. But for this one, we're going to be using all hand cutting on the car. So we want to get rid of the extra film here. So first thing I'll do is I'll cut that off the top. This is a 24-inch roll, so this is just oversized for the window. 20-inch would accommodate the space a little bit better, but 24 is what I have on hand, which means there's going to be a little bit of extra waste. So because we also have a nice factory straight edge on the bottom, I've also lined up the bottom edge of the film, and I'm just letting that rest and almost using that like a shelf and a guide so the film doesn't just slide down. From there, we're going to make our first cut. So you have a lot of clicks in here. We're going to use literally the very first one up. That's it. Just a little bit of blade out the top. Make sure the film is overlapped on the sides. And when we go to make our first cut, I'll kind of pull it up from the glass. I'll find this top corner here, and I'll press my finger in about an inch down from that top corner. You don't need to go all the way to the top. We're basically creating an outline and overlapping all our edges. So I don't need to press up here and create some creases. I'm just going to go right to about there. I'm going to press it into the side. You notice that it's also kind of pulled up off of the window here. We're going to take that blade. We're going to put it in this little roll here, kind of press it in, and then you'll notice that my knife is angled to the right away from the seal, and I'm just pushing some sideways pressure on the left to make that cut. So I'm not skewing my knife and digging into the side. I'm holding it this way, putting pressure to the left, and just trailing that all the way down. And it's really going to be about feel, so you don't want to press super hard, nice and straightforward, and then you should have a really nice clean cut there. Always pull the tint away. So we're basically making the pattern just a little bit bigger than all the edges on the window, so keep that in mind. So you don't need to make every cut completely perfect. So if you have some little issues with your cut going down the side, that's all getting tucked in the side, it doesn't matter as much, but we need to create just a slightly bigger pattern than the window itself, so we don't have any gaps. So you notice this rubber trim here. This is going to be really common on a lot of door windows, and I use this as like a rough measurement for how wide my pattern should be. So I'll drag that over basically to the edge of that rubber. A good rule of thumb is about an 1/8 inch gap or an 1/8 inch overlap on both sides of the window. So when I drag it over this much, it's probably a 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit longer. And then we're gonna go to the other side and we're gonna make the exact same cut. So if you have a mirror or something in the way, generally they will push this way and kind of stay out of your way a little bit, so that's nice. Kind of get that out of the way. And for this cut too, remember, 1 click up, boom. Then we're going to find our top corner here, go about 1 inch down from that, and then we're just gonna make that cut. And you'll notice that I'm angled opposite of the other side. So on the back side, I have my knife angled this way. On the front edge, I have it angled this way. So I always have it angled away from the seal, because if you try and dig it in, this blade is angled into the seal and it's gonna cut off a sliver. If you have it angled outward with only a little bit of blade out, you're gonna make that cut and you're not gonna damage the seal. All right, so we're going to pull the film over too on this side. So lift it up, pull it back over, about half as much as you did on this side. So when we come back over here now, you notice that we're only covering about half that rubber. That's totally fine. Got a little overlap on both sides. The film is still resting on the bottom edge here. Now we're ready to create our bottom. So we pull that down. On a lot of windows, you'll just notice a lot of similarities. So seals roughly come out about maybe like 1 inch from the door, like this little shelf here. So I kind of line it up to the bottom of that. That's going to entirely depend on how far you want to go. So the lower you drag your film down, the harder it's going to be to tuck on the inside of the seal. So you want to go below that first inside seal. So if you want to make your installation easier, just open up the door, look at the inside of the window, see where the seal comes, and then just pull your film down just so it's past that, and you'd be good to go. The less fighting, the better. So I got a little overlap on this side, little overlap on this side. I got my bottom edge, spray that, and now we're gonna tack it in place. This is gonna be so my film doesn't move. So now we need to roll the window down. You just need to roll it down a couple inches so you can get to the top edge. So I'm gonna pull it up from the bottom to make sure it doesn't catch on anything, just safety precaution. Pick it up, roll it down a couple inches here. And now you can see this whole top edge along here. And we're gonna make really the final cut on the window. So we're gonna make the cut, and that's when I'm going to this green boy over here. So if we were doing it on the NT knife, I would go 1, 2, 3 is a good distance. And that also puts you like in the center of the next blade. So you need enough blade that it doesn't dig into any obstructions. So like on the inside of the window, we've got the pillars and stuff. So if I just put all my blade out, then I'm gonna slice into that as I chop. But I want enough blade out that my knife doesn't skip off the window. So go 1, 2, 3, that should be perfect. So on this knife here, same thing. I'm gonna look for that top there, and we're gonna go 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Maybe even 4. Yeah, just so that 1, leave it right there. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Now this is personal preference. You can go one way or you can go the other way. Whatever's more comfortable. The main thing is you want to keep the same angle throughout your entire cut. So what's easier for me is generally going in, in this direction, but I'm going to try and go in this direction for the sake of the video here. So to make our top cut, I push the film in, and now I can see where the top edge of that window is. I'm going to push this blade a little bit above that, let it trail in, and you'll notice it's resting just on that window there. And then I'm going to make my cut, and I'm just going to try and keep this the same angle throughout my entire cut. You see how it curves down, so we curve the knife down a little bit, and we just keep going. What I like about this blade the most is I can kind of take my time with my cut. You can go faster than that for sure, but you don't have near as many snags with a blade like this. Sometimes you'll go to make your cut and it's just like, hey, I can't get it to cut right. The thinness of this blade helps make that cut very nice and easy. So I'm a big fan of these thin blades. Again, tear out. So we've got now the corners to deal with. So I would typically take this over to a glass board. If you don't have one, this is still relatively safe to have on the car. Just, you see I'm already going to snap one of the blades off. So whenever you make a couple of cuts, you're starting to dull out your blade. You want to make it nice and sharp. So then you take your snapper, put it in here, and then you'll snap away. And then there you go. Now we have a nice sharp spot on our blade. So for these cuts, it's just simple drawing straight lines and rounding corners. I'll take a tool, I'll draw a straight line, usually start with the sides and just go straight as I can. And now I only have this little corner right here to make. That's it, just this little guy. Easy peasy, right? So I can freehand this part, so I'm gonna just continue that top edge. And then I'm gonna round that out. That's all you need to do. If you feel like it's a little high, you can always shave some extra tint off. That's totally fine. You just need a little round. On the bottom corner here, it's already pretty straight and matched up. So all I'm gonna do is round my corner a little bit. Probably a little bit more right there. Perfect. Same thing with this back corner. We're gonna round this off. You're just trying to take the sharp points off of it. That's all you're trying to do. With this last one here, you'll notice, because we started our cut about an inch down from the top, just like the other side, you know, we got a farther line here. So I wanna take this line, I wanna continue this straight up, like that, boom. And then I don't have as much to do on this side, but just try and match it up with whatever is going on up here. So if the corner is more curved, cut a bigger curve. We're gonna start our round, come across, connect. So if I want, I could also take my card, draw a straight line, or I can just try and freehand the whole thing. Either way, you're just trying to round that corner. The rest is just gonna be setting up for shrinking and installation. Boom, you have yourself a beautiful door window. Okay. So now we're gonna cut out this back window, clean it off, use a rag, use your squeegee, whatever you wanna do. A good part of this is gonna look identical to what we did on the front door. We just have a couple little changes here. So first, this bottom seal curves up a little bit here. And also you'll notice this edge up here. I saw a lot of people do is they would treat this as a side edge, and then they would go all the way down and over, and they would cut that. Watch, let's roll this window down. We got a big gap up here. We're gonna talk about why that happened. This is not a side edge, just this part is. So that's gonna be the biggest difference for this window and that one. What you're doing is you're looking for straight edges on the window. And there's those straight edges that go up and down, and then there's your top edge that all comes out as one together. So what you're really looking for is this part here that goes up and down. So when you roll it down, this falls out of the sides. This always stays flush with the seal. So we need to treat the side edges different. That's gonna be probably the biggest lesson to learn out of the differences between these doors right here. So we're gonna take a piece, we're gonna put it on the glass. You can still line up the bottom, but there's only gonna be a little bit that you have to trim off there. You don't really even have to, but if you wanna keep everything mirrored, yeah, then you're gonna wanna trim it off. So notice I got that bottom, then we'll trim off our excess film here on the top. Just get that out of the way. That makes everything easier to cut. We're gonna start with this front edge right here. So it's very similar to this edge right here on the front door. So we're gonna pinch in. We're gonna put that first little poke out, and we're just gonna keep it away from the glass. Cut down, boom. That's done. Then we slide the window forward, create that overlap there. Now we have this part to worry about. So what we can do We can tack it in place. So with this bit down here, you can continue this cut and just trim that off. You don't really have to, but if you're more comfortable with one hand than the other, which I definitely am, so trying to cut up this way is a little annoying, I'll cut this way. So put one click out, push your blade in, and then just trim that little bit off. And I'm never pressing this right into the corner. I'm always staying about 1/2 to 1 inch away, so that way it's nice and relaxed, and then I make that cut. And then we're gonna jump right into our side cut here. So with shitty build quality, what you'll notice is this is starting to fall out. So I'm looking for the straight part of this window, and that's gonna start basically about here. So we're gonna start our cut right there, and then just go straight down, and then that's our side edge. From here, loosen our film back up. We're gonna pull the window back over, 1/2 as much, check both sides. Got about an even amount of overlap on one side and the other side, perfect. Then we're gonna pick it up off the bottom. We're gonna drag that down, comfortable amount, about 1/2 inch to 1 inch at the most. Tack that in place, and we're pretty much good to go. I just want to trim the rest of this off here. Reason being is when we go to roll the window down, tint likes to stick to paint and plastic surfaces. So I will generally make sure that's freed up off of those things and not a lot of tint that can catch and manipulate my pattern. As it rolls down, it might shift. So we'll pick up the bottom edge, we'll roll this down, and then we're gonna make our top cut. So for our top cut, same thing. 1, 2, 3, but we already used this blade for the cut on the front, and that means there's gonna be a little wear spot. So what we wanna do then is take out our snapper, we're gonna snap off just the top, and then when we go 1, 2, 3, we're at a whole new spot on the blade. You always wanna make sure that, especially for your top edges, you're using the next spot on the blade, because you will wear through that blade very quickly, especially on this thin one. So when it comes to this cut, we're gonna start at one section on the front side, and we're gonna keep that going all the way over until we hit that corner, and then we're just gonna fall off the window. I'm doing that really to make this a little bit easier, rather than try and go through the entire cut around that curve, which you absolutely can. One way to make this a little bit easier on yourself, start on the far edge, work in, and then start on this other edge here, and then we're gonna go up. So I'm gonna find where that glass starts, I'm gonna push my knife in, and then I'm just gonna go up until I run off the glass again. So I just cut out that top edge, made it a lot easier. I have a little bit of film to round right up there too, but everything else is really straightforward now. So we have one extra corner to round when we round all these out. So bottom corner, zoop. Top corner, draw a straight line. So just line up that, draw a straight line. And then from here to here, you could do the same thing if you feel that's a little far. Just take a card or anything, draw a straight line, round the corner. For this little bit here, you just want to match up these curves. So it mostly matches except for that little straight part. So we're going to take our knife, round that little bit, and now this should match up really well. You can also test fit it, make sure that that's going to line up there really well, and if you have to adjust it more, then do that. For this bigger section here, take out the biggest part first. That'll make it just a little easier. So again, straight line, this is my side edge. We're just gonna go straight up. And now, all of a sudden, this is not quite as long. So we're just going to follow that, and we're gonna round it off, and then we're gonna match it up. We're gonna see how that fits. If we need to do any more modifications, we will. But you see, this part then matches up pretty well over here. So we should be good. This also likes to rock back and forth a little bit. So not surprising that it's close to the edge there, but as it rocks back and forth, it'll be all good. So this little bit, again, we're gonna round this corner, finish off that little straight line there, and then that's all my corners, that's all my edges. It'll match up nice and clean on the inside there. Perfect. So that's the difference between the back door and the front door on something like this. And you're always going to notice these little differences between any set of door windows. A lot of door windows are shaped this way. Some will come down a little bit farther. They won't give you much space on that front edge. And if you're having a hard time trying to install that pattern, generally make it a little bit shorter. There's people that make their patterns like, they'll bring out their patterns all the way to here and wonder why they have a hard time tucking. Just, if you slim up your sides even more, you're gonna have a much easier time getting the pattern situated. And from there, you could always make it a little bit bigger if you need to. But early on, slim up your patterns a little bit. It'll make it a lot easier to do the installing. The more area, more space you have to tuck it in, the harder it's gonna be. So, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and see you in the next one.